All right, folks, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen here with you on the Sports Talk Nation here on YouTube. And again, you can follow us on YouTube by liking and subscribing to the channel right here. And also follow us on the Twitter at OpenMicNJ and also on Facebook.com/OpenMicProgram. We are joined by a fantastic guest tonight, folks. We're going to talk about the Boston Red Sox, who have been the best team in baseball up to this point. 81 wins already. It's only August, the 10th? Or will be the August 10th by Friday anyway, and they're already at 81 wins. They're well on their way to possibly 112, 111 wins. That's the pace they're at right now, and we got a great guest from 27 Outs Baseball, and that is the one and only Chris Hogan. Chris, welcome back, man.
Good to be back with you, Mike. Definitely, as we haven't spoken in a while, and it's crazy how this AL East a couple weeks ago was pretty much, 2-3 games. Now it's 9 as we speak. It's been crazy, but the baseball, even just not just the Red Sox and Yankees, this whole division race with other elite teams, it's getting better. So this is the biggest month of the year. So I'm pretty excited to see what lies ahead. I
mean, the way it's been going for the American League this entire season, it's really been a 5-team race, maybe even a 6-team race when you include Seattle and Oakland in here. And Oakland's just kind of come out of the woodwork. They come out of nowhere with what they've been doing lately. But you know that Cleveland's is just walking home in the Central. No one's competing with them right now. They're 11 up on Minnesota. Boston, after what they did to the Yankees last weekend, are well on their way to a division title. And the Yankees right now holding on to the wild card as they try to find out who they're going to compete with for that wild card with those 3 teams that are still battling it out west, Oakland, Seattle, and Houston. It's going to be a really interesting finish here to the season, I think, as we move towards the stretch run out of the American League. And you got really a whole bunch of teams that are all very good, all teams that have a chance, I think, at winning a World Series. I mean, I look at the National League, I don't see a team out there that really stands out for me. You know, maybe it's the Dodgers. Maybe if they sneak in as a wild card, maybe they could be the team that I would say could win a World Series out of the NL. But it's not much. It's very few and far between. It's really American League type of year this year.
Yeah, I think like last year, it's definitely the American League this year. I mean, the Red Sox are clearly the best team in baseball, not just because of the record. I just think they've been pretty much healthy, and a lot of those other teams, and yes, the Red Sox have had their fair share of injuries lately with Chris Sale, but he'll be back. But the Astros have been bugged with injuries. I mean, Yankees with Aaron Judge. I mean, even the Indians have been hit by the bug at times with the injuries. So I think the Red Sox have been the complete team because they stayed healthy. But like I said, it's still a great talented roster. And with the NL, I mean, you see the Phillies and the Braves, a lot of young talent. They've got some veterans. That's pretty exciting. That's going to be a great race in September. The Nationals not really interested into it, but and then you got the Cubs and Brewers, so that'll be another good rivalry. But I think the American League is probably definitely the stronger point. And the Astros, if they get Correa and Altuve back, they'll be good to go. Because we know what their pitching's done all year. But I think the Red Sox are clearly your best team to beat right now because I don't think the NL really has a clear-cut favorite because everyone has their flaws.
Absolutely, everyone does. And, you know, when I was watching that Yankee series last weekend, and I thought to myself going into it, how good is this Boston team? Because the last time I really sat down and watched them was early in July when they were at Yankee Stadium, and they really didn't play all that well. Yankees took 2 out of 3. And that was when the race was still pretty close. I mean, it was like a game or 2 between each other. I think at one point the Yankees were in first place, so it was a pretty close race. But from what I saw last weekend, from where they were earlier in July, I mean, it is just night and day. I mean, this team is just hitting on all cylinders. J.D. Martinez, of course, has had a phenomenal season. We know what Mookie Betts has done this year, but to see that on such a grand stage as it was for 4 games, consecutive games against the Yankees, considering the magnitude of the series, and for those guys to play at a postseason kind of level was just outstanding to watch for Boston fans. And then to see some other guys that just, maybe we haven't seen a lot of this year, like a Steve Pearce who had a big day last Friday against the Yankees with the couple of home runs and that 15-7 blowout. It was just one after another of different guys coming up and delivering in big spots. And to me, that was really the series that just could catapult this team to a deep postseason run. I think that's the one that's going to convince a lot of people nationally saying, you know what, maybe it isn't Houston. Maybe it isn't the Yankees this year. Maybe it is a Red Sox kind of year.
Yeah, I think so. And I've always said this on your show, other podcasts. I like to think that the trend of having a good combination of young players plus a good mix of veterans really helps the team. And the Red Sox obviously did that in 2004, 7, and 13 when they won theirs. And it's pretty evident this year. Obviously not having that David Ortiz, that's going to be different. But J.D. Martinez hopefully will make up for that. But Yeah, and I like to think Alex Cora. I mean, a lot of people are just saying, "Oh, it's the Mookie Betts of Martinez of the world," but Alex Cora has loosened up that clubhouse a lot that John Farrell really didn't the last couple of years. Yes, they were too good the last couple of years to win the division title, but they didn't really win a postseason series since the World Series in 2013. So I like to give Alex Cora a lot of credit just because he's been loose. He's taken a lot of the philosophy that A.J. Hinch and the Astros staff, kind of the analytics side that the Red Sox really didn't use, and he's used it in their approach, and J.D. Martinez has used it. He's studied swings and exit velocity, so they're very analytical driven, I guess, this year. But besides that, just a lot of talent. They, like I said a minute ago, a good health as well. But Alex Cora has done a good job managing Chris Sale's innings. So he'll be ready for the postseason. He'll come back during the weekend series against the Orioles. But I think David Price has been better. I mean, they've been better in all areas. I mean, Kimbrel's struggled a little bit lately with his walks and allowing some runs, but. But it also comes back to the Red Sox have had a very weak July schedule. Look at the Rangers, the Orioles, the Rays, and the Royals. I mean, they've had a lot of weak competition since the end of June, and it will get tougher towards September with the Astros, Yankees, and Indians. But they're very talented. But like I said, they're taking advantage of a very weak schedule right now. This weekend against the Orioles, the Blue Jays, and the Phillies will be a good test next week. But like I said, a really easy schedule has helped the Red Sox, I think, as well. But they're deep, and I think they'll match up well against the Indians and the Astros if need be.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And you mentioned Alex Cora. When you have young managers getting that first taste of being a manager at such a high level, especially in a big city like Boston, right? You really don't know how it's going to go. And I remember the two of us talking about it at the beginning of the year, was saying, what's it going to be with both Alex Cora and even Aaron Boone, for that matter, being two young guys, fairly young guys, taking over big franchises in big markets with high expectations, how they're going to do. And in a lot of ways, both of them have done okay. I think Boone's getting a lot of negativity because whenever the Yankees go on a long losing streak, everyone wants him fired over here in New York. But Alex Cora has just pressed all the right buttons. He's done all the right things. He's putting guys in the right spots to win. Like you mentioned, a lot of stuff that he learned from A.J. Hinch last couple of years has suddenly paid off. And I think also the fact that he just played, being a guy who is a recent player, he has a lot of connections with a lot of the guys. They can relate to him very well. I think it's a big part of it. If more than anything else, having that one guy who can kind of blend in as one of the guys, especially with the young players, that's big. That's huge right now for them.
Yeah, and I like to also think, and I've said this before, I think when he was with the Red Sox from 2005 to, I believe, 2009 time period, he was a bench player for the Red Sox all 4 years, and he would back up Dustin Pedroia and Bill Miller and all those guys, but he was under Terry Francona during the Red Sox success. I don't want to say he learned kind of towards the back end of his career on how to be a manager from Terry Francona, but he's been a lot, like you mentioned a minute ago, A.J. Hinch. I mean, he's been around the connections and these guys that have won World Series that have been successful in their careers. And, I always say this, bilingual managers, sometimes they do well and sometimes they don't. Freddie Gonzalez had his ups and downs with the Braves and the Marlins, but him being able to talk to young Rafael Devers, in Spanish or, help some of these guys that really don't speak English and just loosen them up and help, a guy like Chris Sale or J.D. Martinez, if they need a day off or skip an extra start, he'll do that. And he's been very good at managing the micromanaging the small things, limiting Chris at 90 pitches through 6 innings for Chris Sale. He won't take him out for a 7th inning, even though he knows he could throw a complete game. He's micromanaged very well. He's the analytics side, I think the Red Sox really has endorsed him for, and they've studied it well. So he's done very well. I mean, Aaron Boone, like I said, I know Yankees fans are pissed that, are upset that, they used Shane Robinson over, in right field against the Red Sox series. So I see where the Yankees fans are a little disgruntled with some of their decision makings, but, Stan's, he's a DH at times. He is what he is in the outfield, but, I think Alex Cora, I think they've both done good, for the most part. I mean, I think Aaron Boone's done good with managing his bullpen for the most part, even though, they've had disaster against the Red Sox. I think both of them have done good jobs, despite, having some injuries on both sides. So Alex Cora is probably the clear cut for the AL Manager of the Year right now, but Aaron Boone, I think he's got his fair share of heat, but look at the Yankees' record right now. What are they, 35 games over 500?
Yeah, I mean,
they're clearly going to be the number one wild card, so I can't give him good credit. I think he's done good for what he's been handled.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, you think about this. I mean, both of these guys took what's basically no-win situations. They'll consider the expectations and when you take over a team, let's say in Aaron Boone's case, that was, excuse me, just a win away from getting to the World Series last year. Anything short of a World Series, heck, anything short of the playoffs is considered a major disappointment with the Yankees. The fact that he's been able to keep that team moving in the right direction, he's been surrounded himself with some good coaches. I think Phil Nevin probably could be a manager next year. Do not be shocked if we hear his name getting brought up for a managerial spot at some point. He adds a lot of fire to the clubhouse as an assistant coach, third base coach for the Yankees. So that certainly has helped him. The one thing I will say that stands out, and I know we talked about this early in the year, and a lot of people have talked about it throughout the course of the season. What separates the Yankees from the Red Sox is the fact that Red Sox pitching is just outstanding. Starting pitching, that is. We know what Chris Sale's done, but look at Rick Porcello this year, 14-4. Look even the guys they brought in. Look, Nathan Eovaldi shutting down the Yankees last week. No earned runs allowed in 8 innings. Getting a complete game, as well from Porcello against the Yankees. David Price, who's had a lot of trouble against the Yankees, pitching extremely well, having a shutout for I think it was like 5 innings, I believe. So all these guys pitching extremely well, and it makes the Red Sox very scary right now.
Yeah, and it also helps having a pretty good defensive back. Yeah, I think we know Betts, Benintendi, Bradley, they'll save you a ton of runs, and Moreland's are very good. And, Bogarts and Devers are what they are in the infield defensively, and they got Ian Kinsler to kind of shore up that second base defense once he comes back next week. But, I think having a great defense, but also everyone's just loose. Like I said, it's a great vibe. I think J.D. Martinez this is not more on the pitching, it's impacting the pitchers, but J.D. Martinez really taken that David Ortiz role as a clubhouse leader. And I know Chris Sale's been vocal, and he's changed his character a little bit since coming over from the White Sox. But David Price, he's going to be his ups and downs with his antics. But I think I don't want to say it's kind of like how the Patriots took in some bad players, and we know how everyone thrives under Bill Belichick. I just think kind of you taking some bad players with bad negative attitudes in the past, and everyone's kind of cleaned up their act a little bit. I guess you could say maybe it's a Boston thing. Bill Belichick had an influence, I don't know, on Alex Cora, but everyone's loose right now. And yes, Nathan Eovaldi, I mean, who knew? Like, he would almost have 2 shutouts in his first 2 starts. And I know Red Sox fans in his first start, I think it was against his first start after coming over from the Rays, they wanted him to pitch a complete game just because I think he was taken out after like 80 pitches. But he's been great. I mean, that Tommy John surgery has been very well. I mean, they've had other guys. Tyler Thornburg, who came over in that trade a couple years ago, Tommy John surgery, really struggled at the beginning of the year. He's coming back pretty well. A guy named Ryan Brazier, who pitched in Japan last year, dominant in the AAA side this year with the Paw Sox. Come out of nowhere with a 1.5 ERA. So, and then Brian Johnson's been up and down the bullpen and the rotation. He's done solid as well. So they've had a lot of no-name guys really come up and help them, and I think it's really helped as well. So it's been a combination of things. I mean, Porcello's struggling a little bit tonight as we record the show against the Blue Jays, but it's been good. I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez will be back soon, so they'll get reinforcements. The only really negative I think about the pitching staff right now is Drew Pomerantz. He's been after a great last year, really struggled, and he'll be demoted to the bullpen. So maybe the Red Sox can get value from him and as a lefty out of the bullpen specialist. We'll see, but I think he's been the only disappointment for the Red Sox this year. All other pitchers have been pretty good.
Yeah. And again, looking at what the Red Sox have done here as they've kept this winning streak going up until tonight. And, of course, as Chris just mentioned, the Blue Jays leading right now 4-2 over the Red Sox in the 4th inning, 2 out in the 4th inning as I'm looking at it right now on ESPN.com. But over the last couple of days, and this has been the case since the month of August started. I mean, you see so many guys put up big, gaudy numbers. A couple of days ago, Mitch Moreland, 4 RBIs, had a big home run. J.D. Martinez had 4 RBIs, 3 hits, as he's been mashing so far, as we know, throughout the course of this year. It makes me wonder, speaking of Martinez, and just on the subject right now, between Martinez and Mookie Betts, and I know this is a great debate because everyone's been having it lately, who is right now the MVP in your mind? I could understand Mookie Betts, and I'm sure I think that's maybe where you go, but I'm going to make an argument for Martinez because when you consider the power that he has, the guy's been hitting well over 300, around 332, the fact that he's kind of been that presence in the middle of the order that the Red Sox needed after the departure of Dave Ortiz. Again, the numbers have been phenomenal so far coming over from Arizona, proving that last year in a hitter's ballpark in the Bob, or what used to be the Bob, was no fluke. To me, he's the MVP. That's just my opinion. But what about you? How do you feel about this? debate.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, Red Sox fan may even say Chris Sale, but, on the pitching side, it definitely is him. But offensive side, and I think just as a leadership, like I mentioned earlier in the show, JD Martinez has taken that leadership role, and he's only 30 years old. It's not like he's a 35-year-old veteran, been around for 10, 12 years, and can bring that voice. He's done it from day one. And yes, he's on a big contract, $25 million a year, and he can opt out after next year, to year 3 and 4. But I think they were probably going to rework something, hopefully in the offseason where, he doesn't have to opt out. I think just because it's been a lot of people forget he missed the first 6 weeks of the 2017 season, and still hit 45 home runs. And he's had some injuries, inconsistencies in the past, but the last 3 or 4 years he's been very consistent. And I think he's in the prime of his career right now. 30 years old. Kind of like how Manny Ramirez was when he came to the Red Sox in 2001. In your early 30s, take advantage of the great hitters, great Fenway Park monster. He can hit the balls to the opposite field. He's just doing everything right. And yes, he strikes out. He's going to strike out once per game, whatever. But he's going to get your 3 hits, and he's played good defense when he's had to. He hasn't been a liability out there. So Mookie Betts is the heart and soul on the leadoff spot with his speed, his defense, and his glove and his hitting. But JD Martinez, I think it goes more than just his on the field play, his vocal leadership. He's learned. He's even helped guys like Rafael Devers and other guys be better hitters this year, more patient. So he's been like almost an assistant hitting coach, if you ask me as well. But Martinez is definitely the MVP of the American League, if you ask me as well. That's no question. He could even hit 50 home runs possibly, and we still have about 60 games left.
Something like that. We got like about 55, 60 games left in the season. Absolutely. I think JD Martinez easily could hit well over 50, maybe even push 60. Who knows? He gets on a tear for a couple of weeks, maybe hits home runs for 2 straight weeks, almost every game. So it could happen.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the only true race. So I obviously was staying last year in the National League with the Marlins and Judge with the Yankees in the American League. I think the home run race right now is Jose Ramirez, who's like 5'8" and maybe 190 pounds or whatever, and he's really a small guy, but he just looks jacked to me. I guess the way he's built, he must be strong in some capacity to be able to lob so many home runs out of there. But it really is JD Martinez and Jose Ramirez. I think they're pretty much equal in terms of the home run categories. Yes, you think of your Bryce Harpers, your Mike Trouts, but they're not putting big home run numbers up. It's your Max Muncies of the Dodgers that is putting up the big home run numbers. So I don't think you're going to see another JD Martinez, 4 home runs in a game like he did last year in a game, or that pace that he went out in the second half. But it's been fun. You see more. You see more pitch. I think pitching's really dominated more in that capacity, but it seems like every other year it's like home runs and then pitching, home runs and pitching. So it's kind of on a unbalanced trend on how you see it. So, but also the strikeouts are up as well this year, in terms of position players. So it really is just JD Martinez and Jose Ramirez, if you ask me, for the home run leader throughout baseball.
It's a weak year in the National League when Matt Carpenter, and I'm not going to try to rag on Matt Carpenter, but when you got a guy who's only like 200 pounds leading the National League in home runs, he has 31, quite impressive. But it compared to guys like Martinez and Ramirez, for that matter, even Chris Davis in Oakland, it's not even a comparison.
Yeah, Matt Carpenter was he had a couple 20 home run season, but 30 home run. I think he had that one streak right around the All-Star break or right after against the Cubs. He had like 4 home runs in that series.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think the Cardinals are even playing better after Mike Matheny, so maybe he's just motivated just to play better, under a new manager. So it could be something like that.
I think I heard a stat the other day, and this has certainly been certainly changed since. I believe the Athletics are 34-10. I think since like June 21st. They have just been phenomenal. They've turned their season completely around. They're the second wild card. If the playoffs started today, they are 3 up on Seattle for that last wild card spot. Heck, they're even creeping up to the Yankees, for that matter, for the top wild card spot right now. So they have just been phenomenal. They've done it with a lot of young pitching.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people at the beginning of the year had them pretty much as a 5th place team, or hovering around the Rangers for one of the worst. And it's crazy how a blast from the past can basically be a resurgence for them. It sounds like an article story headline, but having a guy like Trevor Cahill and Brett Anderson come back from like 10 years ago when they were in the 20s and were very dominant from like 2009, 2010, and they're some of your best starters. And look at Edwin Jackson. What is this? His 13th team, I think, in like 10 years. And he's been your best starter. So they're really bringing guys off the street that haven't been household names in several years. And it's really nice to see a guy like Sean Manaea kind of really step up and be that number one. He's got a lot of talent. Even their bullpen's been very good. Blake Trinan might be the best closer ahead of Craig Kimball this year. I mean, his ERA is not even 1, and it's pretty crazy. And then Jerry Familia's done a nice job coming over. So their bullpen's pretty legit. They got Ryan Butcher on the left side of the bullpen. I mean, I can go on Petit, Trevino, Pagan. I mean, they've been very good. And offensively, you know, they're like you mentioned a minute ago, Chris Davis is that guy. But, I mean, Jed Lowry's having a career year at 34. I mean, Piscotty's done good. So I think Bob Melvin's done a good job. And I don't want to say this kind of reminds me of that 2014 team. It's a little bit different, more younger. But I think they could definitely challenge the Yankees. They've done good for what they are. But how long is this team going to be together intact? Are they going to trade away everyone in the offseason? That remains to be seen. But definitely nice to see a team besides the Angels, the Rangers, probably make a postseason run. I'm just curious what the Mariners are going to do now because they're saying Felix Hernandez may be out of the rotation after a terrible game against the Rangers the other day. So I think the A's are definitely taking advantage of the Mariners' struggles right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when I take a look at this division out there in the West, I mean, I've been all on the Houston Astros bandwagon since the start of the year, but we saw Oakland go out there down in Houston and take 3 out of 4, and I still think Houston's going to win this division, but if the Athletics find a way to get into the playoffs and even get past the Yankees in a wild card game, they're going to be a danger. They're going to be a very tricky team to deal with. I mean, you're talking about, like we just talked about, a team that has a very good bullpen up and down the bullpen. Their starting pitching is pretty solid. They have a lot of guys having career years offensively with the home runs. They are going to be a scary out if they should get into the postseason. And I don't think that the Yankees, let's just say it's going to be Oakland and New York in wild card game. I don't think you can look at this the way the Yankees looked at Minnesota last year. You know, Minnesota was just kind of a nice little story, and I don't think anybody expected them to get in, much like Oakland this year, but there was something about that Minnesota team that just was off. They just really didn't feel that they could maybe get by the Yankees in this kind of game. I think the Oakland A's could get by the Yankees. I mean, the way things are going right now, and I know things could certainly change in 2 months, but you know, I think the A's could give the Yankees some trouble in that one-game playoff.
Yeah, I think kind of comparing the 2 second wild card teams from this year to last year, I think Minnesota's never really had a great pitching staff just because, you know, Target Field's kind of not a really great pitcher's park. Oakland, you know, it pretty much is, even though it's pretty much one of the worst stadiums in all of baseball. I definitely think this would be more of a tougher opponent because, like you mentioned, the pitching staff, the Twins didn't really have a great pitching staff last year. They had Barrios and a couple of Irvin Santana, but I think you put any of those guys. I mean, yes, they're not going to be. I think the Yankees and the Red Sox probably right now do have better rotations than the Oakland A's combined, just because, you know, experience and just talent wise, because they're using that guy like Edwin Jackson and Trevor Cahill. Or, you know, just journeymen really at this point, but they're obviously pitching well. But the Oakland A's will offer power. They hit for power, but they'll strike out a lot too. Kind of like that early 2000s Oakland team with Matt Stairs and Jason Giambi and Tejada, but not talent wise like that. But like I said, they'll put up a run for their money. So I definitely see it as a tougher opponent for them, but still not a big fan of this one game wild card. I like it how we had several years ago where, you know, you had your 2 teams make it. So maybe they'll change that, but like I said, that's for another time. But the Oakland A's definitely have what it takes, especially bullpen-wise and home run-wise, I think, to give the Yankees a run for their money.
Here talking with Chris Hogan of 27 Ounce Baseball. Chris, I know that throughout the course of this summer, you've been really busy with the Macon Bacon. You've really documented everything. That was the word I was looking for. Documented their first season in minor league baseball. Let's talk a little about that, because it's really been fascinating to watch the way you've documented that throughout on social media, both Facebook and through Twitter. What was this first season like for them? I mean, I know sometimes with the franchise that starts up minor leagues, it can be both exciting and a little bit frustrating at the same time. Just tell me a little more about it.
Yeah, it's actually not minor league baseball. I know a lot of fans kind of get confused with that, but what's interesting is the Savannah Bananas, which a lot of people pretty much know, being on ESPN and all their crazy entertainment annex they do.
Right.
This is kind of like a new trend, I guess. The Macon Bacon and the Savannah Bananas are part of the Coastal Plain League, which is a summer college wooden bet, kind of like the Cape Cod League. Mm-hmm. You got the NECBL, the NYCBL, I believe, up in the New York area, and then Northwoods League, some of the summer college leagues, but they basically run through pretty much like late May through around this time in August, second week of August. But it's usually a 55 to 70 game slate, depending on the league. This one, the Coastal Plain League, plays normally about 55 to 60, and it's ranged from teams from Virginia all the way down to Georgia now, where I am. But guys like Justin Verlander, Ryan Zimmerman, even Russell Wilson played in this league. So they've had about 1,500 guys drafted since '97, since when the league formed. But the Bacon play historic Luther Williams Field. A lot of baseball fans that may listen to your show, or just in general, may remember from the movie 42 that was shot there back in 2012. And the former Macon Braves team played there. Chipper Jones, Andrew Jones, Jermaine Dye, Pete Rose played in the 60s when they were the Macon Peaches. So a lot of history. But like some of these older ballparks, they fall into dreary days, and teams want new stadiums or just relocate, and that kind of happened so baseball really hasn't been in full force since about 2002 when the Macon Braves left for Rome up in northwest Georgia. But yeah, they took pretty much the storm this year. We had when they played the Savannah Bananas, they would be called the Food Fight Series, as they call it, even though Savannah dominated the series. It was a really good experience for me. I mean, I've covered minor league baseball for 7 years prior. I mean, I didn't really cover a lot of minor league baseball this year. It was more kind of the college scene, but I'll get to later this month in a couple of my travels. But it really opened my eyes on what it's like to live as a college player, kind of with like a host family, just how they're day-to-day. They don't stay in hotels much. Everything's host family. Your chicken sandwiches, your burgers after the game, quick meal. So it kind of give me the glimpse of, what these guys are living like off the field. Kind of, they don't get that per diem like the minor league players on the road. And one of the best guys I really talked to, and this is, you'll probably remember his name. You remember Eddie Perez, the former Braves backup catcher, right?
Yes, I do. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually covered his son Andres was actually on the Macon Bacon this summer. Grew up right outside Atlanta, and it's funny. He's a 6'7" catcher, and his dad Eddie is only like 6'1". I think his mother's only like 5'7", 5'8". So I asked Andres how the heck he got 6'7". He didn't even know. But just hearing his baseball stories on how his dad influenced the team and his progression as a catcher and all that. I mean, it was really good. I mean, I definitely would like to cover the league again next year, and for sure, and hopefully travel to some of the other ballparks. Because they're all in small communities. Everyone, knows each other, and it really opened my eyes. I mean, they finished second in the league in attendance. I mean, 2,200 fans. They had 11 out of 22 home games were sellouts of over 3,000 fans. I was like, that's the most they've had in over 50 years, looking at some historic stats. So that was really unique. And a lot of the guys that work for the team are former college baseball players. Some of them have worked in minor league baseball. So the guys have really, the ownership's used to work with the Frisco Rough Riders and the Dayton Dragons. So the organization has a lot of minor league baseball kind of experience. And it was a fun summer. So I'm definitely happy that it was a success for them.
You mentioned the way these guys live on the and with these different families, they don't get much of a per diem. I mean, it does sound a little bit like independent league baseball, because when I was with the Jackals, one thing that was very prevalent was that guys would have host families as well. Sometimes they would have a host family, or that the Jackals would rent out a number of rooms in an apartment complex for the guys during the course of the season, and that would pretty much be it. So I'm fascinated by the fact that with a Collegiate League Baseball, that you see a lot of the same things, a lot of similarities for that matter. So I think that's a great experience even for a lot of these kids. I'm just looking up and down the roster, a number of sophomores, a lot of juniors and sophomores on this roster, and for a lot of those guys, if they want to get this opportunity one day, moving forward, to have a look at possibly a baseball career, a professional baseball career, it kind of gives those guys a good taste of what it may be like. Traveling around the road, having a host family, living in basically the grunt life, of minor league baseball until you can make it.
Yeah, and I was talking to a lot of players and some of the, a lot of people around the league. I met a couple broadcasters, they're college kids that do this for the summer, get, experience and all that. I'm doing a lot of research about this league because I didn't know much about it coming into this year. I mean, until they got the schedule out and some of the roster players and all that. But I figured out and learned from this from people around the league. So a lot of these players at the end of the summer to say this could possibly be one of the best summers I've ever had in my life.
Right.
Obviously before professional baseball starts, but just because I like to think off the field to learn how it helps them their people skills. And this may sound a little weird, but it helps them become better men because they're handing out programs at the gates for kids. They're signing autographs. They're helping out in children's hospitals. I mean, yes, minor league baseball players do that with helping the community, but they really get that one-on-one interaction. And when a kid hands them a hat to sign or a baseball, they may be a no name to the community, but they may be that make that kid's day. So they make it a really big thing here in the Coastal Plain League for players to hand out about 4 or 5 players hand out programs at the gates and take selfies and sign autographs for the kids. And and yes, I mean, I even talked to one of the ushers who's actually a local sports writer in this area for the local paper. He took in 3 players this summer, and he was telling me that was a unique experience. He's a retired guy now, but since then. But yeah, it's just you just hear so many great stories, and I always love when they do host family appreciation night. They did a great job here, so it definitely teaches them how to be men off the field, but also better individuals. Because I saw some every day, no matter if they were 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, the next day when I interviewed them, they had a great smile on their face because they don't care about the stats. It's just just getting better, using a wooden bat, some of them for the first time, and just enjoying the summer because there's not a lot of pressure on these guys. I mean, yes, they want to perform well, but they just want to have a good time, and it's not all about the stats. I've learned. I mean, you may hit. I've interviewed guys that hit 160 for the whole summer, but he was probably the nicest guy I interviewed all summer. Just for an example. So, I think it's just more than a game, as they say.
The Coastal Plain League, folks, in case you're wondering, is 16 teams. I believe they're all from down south, correct? They're all in that.
Yeah, it's Southern Virginia all the way down to Georgia. Middle Macon and Savannah. So you got most of the teams are in North Carolina, like in the small cities. You got some by the beach up in Wilmington and stuff like that. There's one in like Columbia, South Carolina area, and then Florence as well. So. It used to be a 2-league division, 2 teams with 8 teams, but now it's a 4-division. The scheduling format's kind of changed a little bit. I'm not a big fan of it, but because you see so many teams, I would kind of like how if it was like an NHL, NBA where you go 1 home, 1 away with the non-division teams. So, but yeah, it's 16, and they're hoping to grow. I mean, there's even talk they want to go into maybe Jacksonville, Florida, or other parts of Georgia, even in Greenville, Tennessee. I've heard so they want to expand even more. So it's definitely excited to see. I mean, it's definitely going to grow. I see.
It's really good because baseball's so. I mean, it's good for a lot of kids because when I was down in Florida for spring training, and I visited with the former general manager of the New York Bears, Buddy Caruso, because he was working with a bunch of college kids down there in Port St. Lucie, and we were just talking about what are the opportunities for a lot of these kids? What are they looking to do? A lot of them are going to try collegiate baseball. A lot of them just want to just doing it just for it so they can get in shape for their college season. And when you think about a league like this, and you think about different leagues like this, possibly expanding. As you just mentioned, I'm sure there's other college leagues across the country for that matter as well. It's such a great opportunity just to expand the game to different parts of the country, different towns, different cities, and just to grow that interest. And I know Major League Baseball keeps talking about like growing the game and expanding the game and getting kids interested, and we have all these different things with like different rule changes and everything else like that for that matter. But when you see this, that's all you need to know about the appeal of the game. When you have these kind of leagues, these kind of opportunities for kids to go out there, even like this, like a mock minor league setting like this, it's just good. It's just good for the game, really is.
Yeah, and I think the community, like a league like this, is really good for community involvement. And here in the South, I mean, football is really pretty much the biggest sport, but baseball is also really good here in the South as well. And in the Northeast, really hockey and football is their first tier sports, but the good thing about this league, and they did a lot of community outreach this year, and I think it will only grow, once Macon goes into year 2.
Mm-hmm.
They hosted most minor league teams host free youth clinics and all that stuff, but the Macon, they went out to the community, went to hospitals, stuff like that. They even had a 3-day, I think it was like, $60, $80, whatever for the 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
3 days host. They did on-field clinics and all that, and all these kids had smiles, and it was just, I was reading social media posts over the weekend and into early this week. Everyone was just so happy for these. Even if the guy had a 7 ERA, they made this kid's summer by, helping him get better his curveball or his fastball for his little league season next year, whatever. Like I said, I always thought, I think you and I probably, I don't know if you, but I always looked at stats. He's a bad player. Now, since last couple of years, I've realized if the guy's probably the worst player on the field, he may have no major league future, but he's a class act. He's worthy of an interview. He's worthy of my time to his time. I look at it as more than stats because some of these guys are genuine. They're trying hard. They're trying to make a kid smile. They're trying to be a positive influence on that team. And that's one thing I really learned about this league is that, yes, they're more accessible than guys in professional baseball, but they're trying to make a household name. And some of these guys may get drafted next year. And you said, I had a chance to interview that guy, and he may be the next, all-star. That's a good feeling to me.
Yeah.
I mean, Andres Perez was drafted 2 years ago by the Braves in the 16th round, didn't sign. Now he's playing Division II college in Georgia. He may be drafted next year. And that was probably one of the funnest interviews I've ever done all year. So it's really that small-town connection. I think you get the most out of it being a media member.
Absolutely. Last question on this before we close it out. Has anybody is anyone documenting this? I mean, I know you've documented it obviously through social media, but is anybody documenting as far as like a video, a documentary about their first season for the Macon Bacon?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I was the only really newspaper guy. I mean, since some newspapers get budget cuts and the staffing, we obviously have the TV reporters. I know they have a really good thing around the Coastal Plain League where they have interns do videos and stuff. So I'll have to check on that. But they did a very good job documenting the funds, entertainment skits and some of the highlights. So. And plus, this is the first year the Coastal Plain League was actually on TV on a live feed. I think it was Android TV, Roku with Netflix, that kind of series. You could watch it on demand for free. And they use Presto Sports, which I think you might be familiar with being the college route. But this is the first year they actually live tape games, and so I think they definitely have some highlights there. And they've done a good job for what they've done with their video coverage. A lot of interns, obviously, but yeah, I think they will. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a little documentary at the end of the year. But I think year 2 is every team is trying to be different. I mean, the Savannah Bananas nail it. No one will ever be the entertainment factor they do because they're in their own world. Everyone doesn't say it's a game; it's a circus there, but for a good reason. But they did a very good job with their entertainment this year. And I'm very excited to see what next year is because they have players dancing during the middle of the innings. They'll have so many good skits, so it's definitely fun.
That is very interesting. Players dancing in the middle of. I hope no one pulls a hamstring while they're doing this. That's one thing.
I think the Savannah Bananas have. Well, I don't know. You might have seen this, but they have a first base dancing coach. He's actually a choreographer, but he goes in like the 3rd, 4th, and like 7th inning, and they just play random music when a player's at bat. They'll all these like hip hop and dancing songs and like something like energetic songs, and he'll do all these. He'll do the Moonwalk by Michael Jackson, all these funny stuff. He's been on ESPN and all that stuff, and he's not really affiliated with baseball, but he's in uniform, and it's really cool. His name's Darius Johnson, but yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you even have some around the league pass out roses to the ladies in the stands. I mean, it's so much different than minor league baseball. That's why I hope minor league baseball will kind of adapt to this entertainment factor. I mean, yes, they do their own fun entertainment, but the way the college summer leagues are involved with their players, and you can't beat that.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Chris, always a pleasure to have you aboard, man. And before we go, just give yourself a little plug, 27 ounce.
Yeah, you guys can follow me. I'm on Twitter at Chris Hogan _. Our website is 27ouncebaseball.com. We're in the process of revamping our radio network with hopefully getting a couple players on after the season, probably in the next couple weeks or so. With me covering the Bacon, it's kind of taken up a lot of my time for radio, but definitely going to get back to that. But you can listen to on our radio network. It's 3andoutradio.com. It's THR, the number 3 and out radio. .com, and you can also search through Spreaker as well, 3 and Out, and also we're on iHeartRadio, iTunes as well, 3 and Out Radio as well, and really appreciate you having me on as well. And you can also follow us on 27 Ounce Baseball on Twitter at 27_Ounce Baseball, Instagram for any photographer shots or videos at 27 Ounce Baseball.
Fantastic, man. Always a pleasure. Like as I said, always a pleasure to have you aboard. We're certainly going to have you on very soon again as we move towards the stretch run of the season, get towards the postseason. We'll talk some more baseball, man. I look forward to it.
All right, man. We'll definitely do that. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, very cool. All right, folks. That's Chris Hogan of 27 Ounce Baseball. Again, I really want to thank him for coming aboard and joining us today to talk about some Red Sox and also talk about a little bit about the Macon Bacon, who we covered this year down in Georgia. Remember, folks, to follow us again on the social media at OpenMicNJ on Twitter, Facebook.com/OpenMicProgram, and of course, like and subscribe right here to the Sports Talk Nation. We'll talk to you next time.